Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Spirit Cafe. It is I, John Davis, and I am here this day to speak unto you about the Purge. Actually, I'm here to talk about purging our life with my lovely and powerful co-host, my compatriot in compassion, the one, the only, Tamara Zoner.
Woo! Yeah, that was a fun intro. Thanks, John. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. Great. Everything is so great. And it's because I'm purging my life in lots of different ways. And I know our topic today is purging. So I thought I would start with that too. So yeah, it's an interesting time right now. How's your life going on right now?
It's great. I'm purging in my own way. You know, still kind of moving from one house to the other. Luckily, I have the ability to take my time getting everything out of the old house. So this is a true blessing, so that I can go through and just get rid of things I don't want or need, that I don't want to bring in as clutter into the new home. So
you're not only purging, you're also merging.
Yes, purging and merging.
Purging and merging. So that's a big process, right?
It is, and it's really fun. It's really and not always fun, but it is fun. You know, right. I can't say that the hours and hours of packing are always fun, but I do make sure that I have something joyful about it. Like either I'm listening to music I love to listen to, or I'll watch a show that I wouldn't normally watch while I'm packing, and cleaning and purging. And that way I bring elements of fun into mundane experiences.
Right. So purging is an interesting word. And purging to me means getting rid of excess stuff, the things that don't serve you anymore, the things that aren't important anymore. And my process of purging started a little differently this year, because I at the time of this recording, I am on day 15 of a 40-day water fast, and I am purging a lot of weight right now. With the 15 days of water fast and the 7 days of preparing for the water fast, which was removing all carbohydrates before the water fast, I've lost a total of 30 pounds even right now. And it feels great. But what's really interesting is when you do a water fast like that, you suddenly find a couple things. You have a ton of energy. You have more energy than you can imagine. People always think you're going to be lethargic or whatever. That's not the way it works. When your body shifts into ketosis, the ketones are a more powerful fuel for the body. You think clearer. Your mind is clearer. My words flow easier, and I just feel energized. But then I also, not only do I have all this new energy, I also have now extra hours in the day because I'm not cooking food or eating food. So now I've got all this time and all this energy, and it's taken me to go, okay, what else in my life can I purge? And I'm going through I had 5 junk drawers. I found out, you keep in junk drawers?
Junk.
Right. So I got rid of all the junk drawers, right? And I'm going through everything, went through my closet. I sent clothes to Goodwill, and I'm just purging the things that don't serve me anymore. I also did something else. I'm purging the things in my life that I don't like. Like in my kitchen, there was never a backsplash behind my stove. Okay. It was just a drywall wall. I was like, I'm purging that drywall wall out of there by placing a backsplash. Okay. So a purging can be adding too, but it can be purging the negative out of your life, I think. And then in our, what we talk about here on Spirit Cafe, of course, the guilt and dogma of religion, you can purge the guilt and the dogma out as well, and leave a much more joyful life What's your thought on purging?
I like what you just said. When you start to purge old beliefs, and this is something I talk a lot about with my clients when they're experiencing what they might perceive as an illness. So your body's natural purging, right?
Mhm.
So if you have a cold and you're sneezing a lot or coughing a lot, or you have stomach issues and you're purging that other direction, or maybe you get a kind of illness that you're vomiting. So you're purging a lot. And I always like to say, okay, you're up leveling. This is your body's way of getting rid of stored, stuck energy and emotion that you didn't deal with before that now we're releasing. So thank it.
Mhm.
And so every time I have a cold, and I had a little cold this last week, and I'm, stuffy or blowing my nose 100 times, I'm like, thank you for releasing the stuff that my body no longer needs to store for me. And I recognize now, after years of thinking this way, that, okay, it's making space for new levels of beauty in my life, right? I got to get rid of the old stuff to make way for the new. And that goes for closets. That goes for our bodies as well. And speaking of closets, still talking about purging, I remember coaching in my early days, talking to someone who wanted a relationship in her life, but her bedroom had no place for another person. And so we talked about purging, like you just did, some closet space, maybe shifting the bed away from the wall so someone has room to get into the bed from the other side. Like, you have to create space in your life for what you want by purging what you no longer need, no longer want.
And it's interesting because, in last week's episode, we talked about the law of attraction, and it's interesting because in the law of attraction, they talk about belief, right? And if you're going through your life and your life is cluttered with stuff that just weighs you down, that's a belief. That's the thing.
Absolutely. And if your mind is cluttered with stuff that you no longer want to believe, like I said last week when we were talking to neopositivity, you can decide new beliefs, but you have to first be aware of what program you're running, right? What's the script running in your life and in your mind right now? You can get rid of it, but we can't just get rid of things. We have to replace behaviors, right? We can't people don't just stop smoking. They replace the behavior with something healthier. Maybe it's meditation or deep breathing that doesn't involve carcinogens. So we need to replace the behavior. So with your water fast, what was your process for kind of replacing that urge to eat and that desire to like sit at the table and have a meal?
Well, I'm lucky. I'm a bachelor, so I don't usually sit at the table. I usually sit in the living room. When I eat something, right? I do, when I have something that's going to be messy, that goes to the table. But but most of the time, I'm just sitting in my living room eating. But the interesting thing about the process of the water fast was, once my process of getting to the point of doing the water fast, I had to first purge myself of carbohydrates. And the reason that is because carbohydrates is what creates the hunger sensation. Okay. So when you're not needing the glucose, right? There is in diet, and this is going off on a little slightly different topic, but in diet, there are no essential carbohydrates, but there are essential proteins and fats. But there are no essential carbohydrates. You could live the rest of your life with no carbohydrates and be just fine.
I just want to put a quick disclaimer in that any listeners or viewers who are considering doing this, please consult your doctor first. We are not nutritionists.
Absolutely. If you're trying to take medical advice from the two of us,
do not take medical advice from us.
Yeah. That's not a good choice. That's not a good life choice, actually.
I can refer you to great people in medicine.
But carbohydrate, and for me, I discovered carbohydrates was really bad. It was really bothering my body. And so by taking carbohydrates out for a week, that was part of the purging process, right? I purged the carbohydrates first. Then I got into the meals. What was interesting about not eating and I've done fasts for years. So I've done juice fast and water fast and 3-day fast and 21-day fast. This is a 40-day fast, right? So I've done this for years. So I understand what my body does. And what's the biggest issue is not hunger. The biggest issue is habitual time, because you have certain times that you habitually eat. And at those times, you think more about food because your habit is that thought. Yeah. And so what I have to do is I have to go, okay, I'm thinking about that. So I go get a glass of water and I put water in my body. And then if I'm still thinking about it, then I find a task to distract myself. Fortunately, I have a book that I'm writing. So I can get immersed in my book writing and just write, forget, and lose an entire day just writing. And that's great. So it's very, the process of purging the food out. Now, on the body level, my body is purging fat, right? And your body stores this excess fat. And they know this, the reason your body stores fat is because of the insulin response. Not a diabetic thing. If you have too many carbohydrates, your body will store fat because that's what it does. It spikes your insulin, which makes you store your fat. And when you take the carbohydrates out, your body drops away. That's why bodybuilders for years have done the steak and eggs diet. But when you purge your body of the fat, you're releasing all this new energy. And as you purge your life, you're releasing all this new energy, and you're releasing it into, a cleaner house, which makes you feel better, which makes you more productive, which makes you more caring and loving, because you don't have the stress and anxieties of the things around you. They say often that your outer expression is, tells you what your inner expression is. If you live in a cluttered house, then you probably have a cluttered mind.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think if you cleanse that or purge that stuff out of your system or out of your process, then what happens is you get very clear about a lot of things. And like I said to somebody the other day, I said, I have clean parts of my house that I didn't know I had. Right. And it's just, that's the way it seemed. I'm just cleaning, and it's feels so good to walk out of that room and have no dust in it and have it just be a complete done room. It's like, but I live in a 3,200 square foot house. So it's a big house for one guy to kick around in. Right. And so, but I've, going through all the different rooms, my studio here now has 2 sets. It didn't have 2 sets in this room before. The other set was in a different room. So I've made this room smaller and more precise. And because I've been able to purge everything out of it, I've made this room really effective. And then of course, when I do move out of this house, eventually I'll move back to the beach, because that's my goal in life, is to go back to have my feet in the sand again. Then at that point, because I have purged, it makes that manifestation even easier to do, because I have less to carry, less to pack.
Yeah, I love that. I've moved a whole bunch of times over the years, and not little moves either, moves across oceans. So each time I've done that, in fact, the biggest, most interesting move was when I already had the 3 kids. I was still married, and we were moving to England for my ex's new job, but they weren't paying for shipping. They weren't moving us. And so we packed 10 suitcases between the 5 of us. And that was it. We found a furnished home, so we didn't have to worry about all the furniture and such, but we only took what really mattered. I had 1 suitcase with our favorite knives and pans, 1 suitcase with the kids' favorite toys. And then we each got a suitcase of, the clothes that we really loved, and kids, they were little, so we needed blankets that they loved. And but the most important essentials was all that we packed. And it really does clear things up for you.
Right.
We sold almost everything else. I kept a few bigger pieces that I stored with my parents, which I'm so grateful that I kept, because it's my beautiful dining table, a Chinese chest from Singapore, and another step chest that I just loved. And everything else was just gone. All the little things that fill up all the closets and boxes and drawers that you don't look at for years. You don't need them. You don't need them.
Yeah, you absolutely don't. And George Carlin once did a great routine called "A Place for My Stuff," and he said, you have your house is just a place for your stuff with a cover on it, right? And he says, when you go on a trip, you take what you need for the trip. He says, and then you get on that trip and they say, let's do a day trip somewhere else. And eventually it gets down to you have only your bare essentials. He says, and those are money, keys, comb, pen, hanky, rubber, and change. He says, well, only only the stuff you hope you're going to need. Right. Right. But the idea of being free, when I did Renaissance festivals, for a large portion of that, I lived in a 24-foot Airstream travel trailer, and I loved it. I wasn't allowed to have extra stuff.
Right.
So it was like I had cases that carried the tools that I used. I had my costumes. I had my regular clothes. I had a television, right? And that was it, and it was a lovely life. I hung out with beautiful, wonderful people, and we did cool things, but we didn't collect stuff. Right. And that kind of still lives with me today. I don't collect a lot of stuff. I mean, I have just like you, I have things that are very sentimental, my stuff, some stuff from Egypt and some stuff from Peru and, things of that nature. But there are very few things that are that sentimental to me anymore, because it's like my personal present moment experience is the most valuable thing I have.
Yeah. I was doing my You Matter Mondays video this morning. And one of the things that I invite people to ask is, okay, what do I want? And then, does it serve me? Right? So it can be about food. It can be about stuff. It can be about a change in diet. It can be about a date. What do I want? Okay, now I know what I want. Does this serve me? And then listen in, and that's kind of the Marie Kondo thing, right? Does it spark joy? Does this thing that I'm thinking of keeping or throwing away spark joy? Does it mean something to me, or could I let it go? It's also very Sedona method. Are you familiar with the Sedona method?
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
It's an emotional tool, and it's like, is this feeling here serving me? Do I want to keep it, or could I let it go? And it's just like, I do this hand motion, because could I let it go? It's like the pen rolling out of your hand. Could you just let it go? You're gripping or you're releasing.
Right.
Gripping or releasing. And so this release and this letting go of things that we don't need is so good. And I know for sure that this is not easy for people. It's not to let go of things that you think that you need, but find a friend who can help you too. That's so important. When I was cleaning out my closet, in the other house, when I moved my office from the upstairs common area to my bedroom, which became the multi-purpose room for me, so that I could take clients all the time, not just when I didn't have my kids, I had clothes that I'd had for years and other things that I'd had for years. And it was challenging for me to say goodbye to those. So my daughter, who's 15, she's a pro at minimalism. Oh, she's amazing. And so I was like, Paloma, can you help me? So she did. And I would be like, oh, I don't know. She's like, Mom, you don't need it. Okay, you're right. I don't need it. So, find a friend who can help you in the purge of stuff, or in John's case, the diet, the water fast. Often it's so helpful for us to have an accountability partner or a buddy who's doing it with us, so we feel that support. It's helpful.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because Usually I do on my own, but this time I'm doing it very publicly. It's on my YouTube channel, and I'm sharing it with my audience. And it's very interesting because there's a lot of people, we talked about purging our spiritual beliefs, but there's a lot of other beliefs that people are very married to because of new Western medicine thought. And it's like, for instance, Buddhists, Hindus, Christians have been meditating and fasting for long periods of time for thousands of years. But in the last 20 years, they've decided that electrolytes are important for that. And there are electrolyte zealots in the world who contact me daily, who are like, you need to get on electrolytes. And I'm like, I've done this a lot, and I've done this without electrolytes, and so did Jesus. And it's like, so when you talk about purging, you have to purge not only your surrounding life, but sometimes your beliefs as well, because your beliefs are creating your experience. And so, and if you're getting so zealotous about something like that, I don't even know if that's a word or not, but I'll use it anyway.
It is now.
It is now. It's a John Davis word, baby.
I like to make up words. So
yeah. Zealotous. I like the word though. It's a cool word. If you're getting in the position of being a zealot about a certain topic, ask yourself, is it because of the information being right, or is it because of your need to be right?
Yeah, a need for control.
Right. And so, you need to look into those things, because that's the stuff you also need to purge. Because if you feel the need to be right, on some level, you're mistaking power for love. And you need to look at that idea, because you're exerting power over others so you feel powerful. Well, the one thing that makes you feel powerful is love. It makes you feel completely powerful, because when you are truly in a loving space and you're exuding love and living love, nothing can really affect you or harm you. And you're not in a space of going, well, I don't know as much as them. You don't go there, because we're all one anyway.
Yeah, and where you can go in that is that I trust them to trust their own wisdom and to know what's right for them. I can't tell you what's right for you. I can only tell me what's right for me, and trust that I know what's best for me and you know what's best for you, because you know yourself better than anybody else.
Right.
And we have to all listen into our own inner guidance and wisdom. And everyone is, as much as we are the same, we are also unique.
Right. So I want to tell a slightly negative story, and understand there's a positive in it. So I'm water fasting, and a man contacts me, and he saw one of my videos, obviously, and he says, I want to coach you on your fasting. And I was like, he says, and then you can coach me on spirituality. And I was like, I said, no, I'm good. I've fasted a lot. I don't feel the need for a coach. And then his next response was, here's what I need you to do for me. This is how he's kind of framing it. He says, I want you to go out and get some test strips. I need you to test your pH daily. And I was like, right. And so then I said, I'm not I have no interest in doing that. But if you go to this other YouTube channel, A Healthy Alternative, which is all about water fasting or fasting in general, he probably has already done your research and probably can give it to you today. And he comes back and he's like, how dare you send me to another channel? You're trying to blow me off. He got instantly mad and angry, right?
First he comes unsolicited saying, I'm going to coach you. That's like rule number one. No.
Right. Well,
you never coach without permission, people.
So my interactions with them became very clear that he was coming from a very out of balanced ego, and he had to be right. And so to purge him was easy enough to go click, but to purge him and feel right about the way I purged him, I had to get very blunt with him because I knew he wouldn't hear anything else but bluntness. I could just tell that, right? So he said, why would you send me there? I'm not trying to sell you anything. Da, da, da. And I was like, I said, first of all, your first introduction to me was you said you wanted to be my coach without knowing that I have been fasting for years. So obviously, I said to you, I didn't want that. And then I said, number two, second, when I said I didn't want that, you instantly told me that I had to do a bunch of spend my money and do a bunch of research for you because you didn't have the knowledge. So obviously you're not an expert. Right. And I said, three. Well, it was like bang, 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 bang. I said what I said about the other channel having the information. Then I said, you didn't recognize that I was doing a loving gesture by sending you where you could get your information, but instead you just had to be right. So in purging him, I now feel good because I have released not only the junk he was throwing at me, but I released him with giving him more information that could actually help him.
Right.
And I think purging doesn't have to be like purging people from your life, especially, doesn't have to be a complete close off, I ignore you. It could be a graceful exit, right? Yeah. Right. And sometimes graceful exits have to be blunt. And so in this case, I had to be very blunt with this man and tell him that I thought his ego was out of balance. And I did tell him that too. So, and I think it's important that you realize that in doing something like that, you're not only purging him from your life, but you're also validating your own.
Yes. Like that you are your own expert, you. And frankly, that was definitely an out of whack ego. I mean, to just approach you and tell you you needed him to coach you. Just like, what?
And as this is one of the things I did say to him. I said, whether you have more knowledge or not, you might have more knowledge than me, but I'm not interested because you instantly assumed we were not equal, and I believe we're all equal. So it was instantly a turnoff. So I shared all those things, but I agree. He was definitely not coming from a place. So purging is not just lifelong purging; it's also purging daily. The things that come in, purge the negative person that came into your life. Okay, I'm not attached to that any longer.
Yeah.
And the story. I think I've told you the story about the monks who walked to the river, and the old lady standing there, right?
You've told the story, but now you've mentioned it, so the listeners are wondering. So.
Oh, okay. So an old Zen Buddhist monk is walking down a road with his apprentice, and they come to a raging river. And at the edge of the raging river is an old woman, and she's standing there, and she's afraid to cross the river. And she says to the monk, "Can you help me? Help me cross the river." Without thinking, without a hesitation, the older monk picks the woman up, puts her on his shoulder, and carries her to the other side of the river and sets her down. And they start walking down the path, the apprentice and the old monk, and they get 2 miles down the road. And finally, the whole time they're walking, the apprentice is getting madder and madder and angrier and just really frustrated. And he's like, finally, he just can't take it anymore. He says, "Master, how dare you? How dare you? You know that we are not supposed to touch a woman. How dare you touch that woman? How dare you pick that woman up?" And the old monk says, "I put her down 2 miles ago. Why are you still carrying her?" Yeah. And to carry someone in your mind is just as taxing as carrying somebody on your shoulder.
Oh, it is. And I know for sure that sometimes purging a person has to be a daily practice.
Especially, but in my personal case, if you have kids together.
And mine too.
Well, I didn't want to say that for you.
Yes. So we have to purge our thoughts and beliefs, because for me, I don't want to hold that, right? They don't get to take space up. they don't deserve it. They lost that privilege. And
Right.
so it's my job to practice the purge, practice forgiveness, practice, as often as needed to release that.
Right. Yeah, I
so that we
agree.
can go on living our healthy, clear, clean, feel good, energized life.
Dun, dun, dun. And that's really it. Is what we all want is an easy life. And sometimes an easy life is doing something you love too. That's easy because it's not work.
I don't think we all necessarily want an easy life, but we want an easeful life, a life of ease.
Yeah, I mean, you can work hard at something you love, but it doesn't feel like work.
Yes, exactly. Because there's the ease, because you're aligned, because you're in flow, because it feels good.
Right. Exactly. I agree. Well, I think we've come to an end of another episode.
I think we have. I feel like that's a good stopping point.
Yes. Let's purge this episode.
I'm gonna purge this now, and all this talk of this purging and water fasting has made me really hungry. So
well, thanks for sharing that.
No, I love you, John. I'm gonna go.
I love you right back.
All right, listen, viewers, we love you too. We thank you for being here. Tell us in the comments what you're purging. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.